What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is gonna be my comprehensive analysis and review of the Dawning Reality and Nifl Banner, which features Nyx, Charolotte, Nifl, Orochi, and also Benny as an instant demote unit. I'll also be going over the best builds that you can run on them for different game modes. I know I'm kinda late to this banner review, but still I wanted to upload it before the banner ended, and these units are gonna be getting rerun later, so people can still refer to this video. If you wanna help me beat the silent dragon known as YouTube, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it a lot. And with that said, let us begin. So Nyx can be considered a star of this banner essentially because of how unique she is. So she's a red infantry mage, and she's got some really good offensive stat spread with 42 base attack and 40 base speed. Her HP is definitely pretty low at base 36, which kinda does hurt her longevity, but still she has got that insane damage reduction on her weapon. And she doesn't really have the highest defense or resistance, but the resistance can definitely be worked out. And the preferred weapon, which makes her stand out and also makes her unique compared to any other red mage, is Dmg. So this gives her plus 3 speed, and at start of combat, if she's above 25% HP, then she can get plus 6 attack and speed during the combat. And now, the secondary part of this effect is kinda confusing. Even I myself in the trailer got bamboozled by this, so I wanna just clarify it here. So in the player phase, she's gonna be getting 40% damage reduction against any unit, which means that she can take hits from Brave Hector, Fallen Edelgard, and a lot of the very heavy hitting units who are not even magical or staff units. But in the enemy phase, she will only reduce the damage from foe's first attack by 40% if they are magical unit or staff unit. So in the player phase, Nyx becomes a very strong unit who doesn't die that easily. Even though she's got low HP, the damage reduction that she gets is really good. And whatever damage that she reduces actually gets added to her next attack. So it's kind of like Ice Mirror in a sense. So that makes her pretty powerful because she can do the damage reduction and then hit them really hard. It's also worth noting that this will work with Miracle. So if you survive with 1 HP using Miracle, whatever damage that you reduced and didn't take, that is gonna get added to her next attack. And this also stacks up with the more damage reduction she gets. So if you run her with Nifl or Flame and she gets more damage reduction, then she's gonna be getting even more damage output on the next hit. So that is Nyx in a nutshell, with Dmg making her a really unique unit and actually quite threatening to face if she's gonna be initiating on you. And Nyx can be a really fun unit to use in a player's hand because she will survive stuff that she has no right surviving, even hits from someone like Brave Hector, so that is really fun. She also comes with Speed Res Solo 4, which is a tier 4 skill, and that is really good for her because she wants to be fast and she doesn't really want to get doubled, and that's why Null Follow Up really helps her because she only reduces damage from foe's first attack and not from their second attack. So Null Follow Up pretty much gets rid of any kind of auto follow up, and the extra speed, making her really fast, just gets rid of any kind of natural doubles. So investing into her speed and stopping any kind of follow-up attacks is basically the strategy that she wants to go with, and her base kit really complements that well. Overall, Nyx is a very good red infantry mage. There are a lot of really good nukes as a mage, but there are not really many mages who can also be deceptively bulky like Nyx because of her damage reduction and can survive a lot of things in the player phase. So for her builds, her base kit works really well. You can just go with Savage Blow, and that can help you in the player phase. Like I said before, she really needs Null Follow Up to shut down the auto follow up, so that is going to be needed. And you can also run Glimmer over Luna if you want to trigger it in a single round of combat. You can also run something like Rouse Attack Resistance from Spring Soleil and just boost up her attack and resistance. And Mystic Boost can also help you not only reduce damage from healers who have Wrathful Staff, but also gives you the self-sufficiency, which is really good because Nyx needs to maintain that threshold of the HP for her weapon. She can also be used in either ways offense because a lot of the magical threats and staff units are gonna get used there, so she can also tank a lot of units in the enemy phase pretty well as well, but you'll need to watch out for the Bow Cavaliers and Dagger Cavaliers who can hit on her defense in the enemy phase. She will not be reducing damage by them in the enemy phase, but still she can tank the mages just fine. So Mystic Boost again does make your matchups better against the common healers and also provides you with the self-sufficiency. And at higher investments, you can definitely go with Attack Res Unity and also have Null Follow Up. You can also try Null Counter Disrupt, but I kind of feel like Null Follow Up helps you a bit more because you really need to stop the auto doubles of many of the cheating units like Ramimond, Duolith, and things of that nature. And she can be helpful in the light season where Note and a lot of cavalry units are going to be really threatening. And she can also help you in cleanup because of her damage reduction, and she can definitely survive some really hard hitting units. And if you want to invest heavily into her for Arena, then she can actually be a really good unit because she'll reduce the damage from a lot of the magical threats which are going to be quite prevalent, like Duo Byleth, Duo Lift, and things of those nature. So she can enemy phase them, which is really good. And in the player phase, even against some really hard hitting armor units with distant counter, she's going to be able to get that damage reduction. So she's one of the best premium users of our Dual Infantry 4. Because of the damage reduction shenanigans, she can of course be used in AETHER defense, and she can be a player phase threat. She's no cavalry unit, so she's not going to be having that threat range, but she can still be used in AETHER defense with an ARD skill because the solo skills are not the most consistent in the AI's hands. So that's why something like ARD speed resistance is going to be pretty nice for giving her that extra speed boost, and sturdy blow can make her a bit more bulky, and overall the damage reduction can help her survive. But keep in mind, many of the well-supported plus 10 merge, like Farsight Brave Hectors, who have got some attack, are still going to be able to one-shot her. And I know many people have seen the Miracle build on Nyx, but I don't think that's too practical on her. It's more like a gimmick in my opinion, because it's not going to work that well in AETHER defense because you need so many infantry pulses, and one pulse smoke is going to get rid of your entire game plan. So many players in the Vault of Heaven are going to be having some kind of unit with Pulse Smoke to just counter team this kind of Nyx Miracle shenanigans, and then Nyx will just fall apart and not really be able to use her Miracle. So that's why I feel like this is more consistent. Miracle I know can be fun, but I personally don't think it's that practical. And if you want to invest heavily into her, then Sturdy Impact is really good for giving her that extra defense, which will let her survive many of the physical threats. And you can also run Fatal Smoke, which is going to be shutting down any kind of Mystic boost, which is really good because many times Nyx is going to be surviving the combat because of null follow-up and her damage reduction. So Fatal Smoke can be really annoying for your opponents if they're going to be using any kind of self-sufficient tanks or Mystic boost. And Fallen Edelgard herself has that self-healing from her Slot B skill, and Henriette also has that from her tome. So Fatal Smoke ends up being a very strong premium skill on her. As for the IVs, even though Nyx has got Super Boon in both attack and speed, I overall feel like speed is going to be a much better option to invest into, no matter if you're using her at low merges or even high merges. The reason being is that there are crazy fast units in the game, and there are a lot of factors like debuffs, lull skills, and a lot of things in play that can reduce your speed. So investing into her speed is really important so that she doesn't die to a double attack, and that's why I feel like plus speed IV is the one which I prefer on her most. Charolotte has finally escaped the Alt Hell, and she is present in the game now as an Axe Infantry unit with Fair Fury Axe as her preferred weapon. So unfortunately she doesn't have 176 BST, which means that she doesn't hit 180 BST for the arena usage after the first merge. But outside of that, she's a pretty good unit and a premier Axe Infantry unit with some amazing offenses with base 43 attack and base 41 speed, having Super Boon in both of them. And she's also got pretty high HP but doesn't have the highest bulk with her defense and resistance. Her preferred weapon also mostly does things for her for damage output. So it gives her -1 special cooldown, and if she initiates combat or if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, then she can deal 15% of her total attack stat as a true damage, and she also gets +6 attack and speed during the combat. So this weapon is always active in the player phase, which makes her a really good unit in that phase, and she can also run Gale Force builds really well because she's got -1 special cooldown from this preferred weapon, and that makes Gale Force a 4-turn special, which you can easily trigger using Flashing Blade. So this weapon pretty much doubles down on her playstyle of going full offensive, and she also comes with a new line of skill in Frenzy. So Frenzy is basically Desperation 2 with a damage reduction skill built into it, and the Desperation effect is pretty good for someone like Charolotte who doesn't have a lot of bulk, and the damage reduction can definitely help her quite a bit, but overall Frenzy is not going to be better than Spurn or even Close Call in many of the cases. For units like Charolotte, Raven, it does work out pretty well though. So she can definitely utilize the skill, but sometimes the skill can be a bit annoying because the damage reduction can actually stop you from getting into the Desperation range, and the damage reduction can also prevent you from being a Wings of Mercy beacon in many of the situations. So it is good for her, but in competitive game modes like AETHER, she's probably not going to be wanting this, and she could run some other skills. So for her builds, her base kit is already so good that you really don't have to do too much, and you can just run an offensive Sacred Seal like Blade Session. You can also go with Gale Force on her because she's a really good user of that. And if you want to invest heavily into her, then Odd Tempest is a really good option with a Gale Force build. Again, like I said, she doesn't need Time Pulse if she's going to be using Flashing Blade to accelerate her special. So in that case, Odd Tempest gives her extra mobility, which is really amazing. And that's definitely a really good option for her. And again, for her IVs, I would pretty much like to repeat what I said with Nyx. Going with plus speed IV is going to be better for you, even if the plus attack Super Boon gives you the extra damage output. I feel like having extra speed is more important for her as a unit at lower or even at higher investment. So because she's really good at Gale Force, she can also be used in AETHER offense as a Gale Force unit, but I don't think she's best used as a Gale Force initiator because her HP is way too high already, and with the mythic boost, her HP becomes really high to the point where she's gonna have trouble falling into the Wings of Mercy range against Note and Seros, the common defensive mythic units who are put on the front lines, and where she has got the weapon strangle advantage. So it's not the best to use her as an initiator, but rather as a Wings of Mercy Flashing Blade unit who can teleport into your Wings of Mercy beacon. If you've seen my AETHER offense video, you can pretty much imagine how I would use her. And Time Pulse works really well with this kind of build because you can have a one-tap Gale Force, which is really ideal because if you've chipped down the opponent's team with like Bolt Tower or Savage Blow, then you can just hit them once and then just Gale Force off of them. So I feel like this is the best way of using Charolotte in AETHER offense with a Gale Force build. And then finally, at max investment, you can go with Flashing Blade 4 for getting even more true damage and running Odd Tempest and basically having this kind of green build. And I would still go with plus speed IV even at max investment. Unfortunately, Charlotte doesn't reach 180 BST for arena usage, so that can be pretty annoying for her fans. But still, I wouldn't really recommend running some kind of dual skill on her just to reach that 180 BST. You can still just use Flashing Blade or any kind of expensive 300 SP slot A skill that can help you in arena scoring and use her as a Gale Force unit. Nifl is a very unique unit because she's the first cavalry dragon in the game and she's a blue dragon. Now even though this is really unique, unfortunately it deprives her of many good skills that she could have run. Like she cannot run Flow Refresh on slot B like other cavalry units, she cannot run Gale Force because she's a dragon, and she's mainly going to be functioning in the player phase. Having Gale Force would have been pretty good with her stat spread and her offensive capability, but unfortunately she cannot. So she mainly has to function with some skills that she's allowed to have, and she also has a preferred weapon which is definitely really good. So it's giving her plus 3 speed, and at start of combat if she's above 25% HP, then she can inflict -5 debuff to all stats of the opponent during the combat. And after combat she can inflict flash status on the target and foes within 2 spaces. So this is pretty similar to Kemph as we have seen before, but her flash status condition does depend on her HP threshold, so you need to be above that HP to get the flash status and also get the in-combat debuff. So this can definitely be used in AETHER defense, and she actually comes with an AETHER defense skill, and I feel like she was some kind of scrapped defensive mythic unit. But basically flash status is really good against many of these save armor units because they will not be able to run null counter disrupt to retaliate back. So she can be considered like an offensive version of the Kemph because they both try to achieve the same things by having that AoE flash effect, and Kemph has been doing the same thing which Nifl does for a long time in the Grail pool. But Nifl does have the Domain of Ice, which is her exclusive skill, and this is definitely going to be getting some use in AETHER defense because we are going to be getting Safety Fence as an offensive structure, which means that a lot of the turn 1 teams kind of get hurt, so we can see a lot more armor units with save skills like Far Save and Near Save. And she can be a really good unit to be used with those save units because she can provide them with the damage reduction with Domain of Ice and still be a threat in the player phase because she can inflict the flash status, making it really hard for the opponent to snipe your team because of those far save armor units who are getting damage reduction from Nifl, and also really hard to tank your team because Nifl is going to be flashing them and leaving them really helpless if they do not have null counter disrupt. So Domain of Ice is her exclusive skill, and it's basically like a joint drive speed and joint drive resistance, and it can provide her and the allies within 2 spaces with 30% damage reduction. Now keep in mind she needs to be within 2 spaces of an ally to get this effect herself and obviously give this to the allies. So it can be a bit awkward at times because she's a cavalry unit, so she might just run ahead and not be able to use this Domain of Ice or support her teammates, but still this is a really good effect that she can use it to support her allies while still being a threat in the player phase with her offensive stat spread and providing that flash utility. She also has Super Boon in attack and speed, which is further going to be helping her in her offensive capabilities. So now let's look at some of the builds that you can run on Nifl. Unfortunately, the ARD skill is really no use if you're going to be using her outside of AETHER defense, so that's why on a budget you could go with Death Blow 3. We unfortunately don't have the best options for the player phase. I guess you could even go with Life and Death, but that will be reducing her bulk. So you can run that and have some kind of offensive Sacred Seal. Susparo 2 can also be obtained from Luthier now, so that could be used, and it's also present in the Grail pool, so that can be pretty nice if you run Susparo Sacred Seal as well. And then finally, you can use her in AETHER defense. Pretty much, it seems like the mode she was made for. So she does come with ARD attack speed, which is extremely good. It gives you plus 11 to your attack and speed if you have wall protected structures. And that can also be done by extending the threat range of your team. And I feel like she is used best in the Dark Season because in the Dark Season, there are going to be a lot of threatening teams with Note, and people are more prone to using save armor units, and flashing them is going to be really good. So she is more than enough fast for just windsweeping them, and windsweep is a really good way of annoying your opponents and a lot of the save armor units because they're not going to be fast enough as Nifl. So I feel like windsweep is a really strong option for AETHER defense and can be considered. Alternatively, you could also run Escutcheon. You've probably seen a lot of Escutcheon, Kemph, and Vault of Heaven, and that's to increase his survivability. And for Nifl, it gets a bit better because she already has Domain of Ice, so this is pretty much aiming to survive with her, especially with the lull attack speed which she already comes with. And people are going to be buffing up their units because people are going to be using Peony, so in that case, the lull skill does give you some value. And finally, if you do decide to plus in Merger, then she can be used in Arena with B-Dual Cavalry 4 and actually be a pretty nice unit because she can provide you with the flash effect, and she does have good mobility while also providing you with a flat damage reduction with Domain of Ice. Unfortunately, she's forced to run Blue Flame or AETHER for a high scoring special, so Blue Flame is of course going to be a bit better because of its lower cooldown. And finally, if you want to use her at max investment, then a Cat skill is really good on her outside of AETHER raids, and Mystic Boost can also be nice because it can help her self-sustain and be in that threshold HP for her weapon. I wouldn't really recommend you to run Distant Counter on her because she's mainly going to be focused in the player phase, inflicting that flash effect, and it's kind of similar to the Mythic Freya syndrome where you think they might function really well with a damage reduction build, but in reality they don't have the highest bulk and they don't have access to a lot of these skills like Null Follow Up, which can productively use their speed and help them as a tank. So you mainly try to use her in the player phase and try to use the flash effect to a great use. Orochi is the demote unit on this banner, and she's a green infantry mage. She does have a preferred weapon, which is really good compared to a lot of the demote mages who have nothing unique as a preferred weapon. It's not the greatest preferred weapon, but at least it's something. So Orochi has got a pretty good base attack at base 40 with a super boon in it. Her speed is kind of low at base 24. Even with the super boon, you're not going to be able to make much use of this in the modern times, and her defense is rather low as well with high resistance. So Orochi is actually a pretty unique unit in the free-to-play pool because we don't really have this kind of unit with high attack and high resistance, as surprising as it sounds. So it makes her a pretty good merge project option in the green mage pool, and it's not really as saturated as the red mage pool in my opinion. So Tiger Spirit is her preferred weapon, and it gives her +3 resistance, and at start of combat, if she's above 25% HP, then she can get +6 attack and resistance during the combat, and after the combat she can inflict the Panic Smoke. So this weapon is pretty decent honestly. It does have that Panic Smoke, so it could be useful in some game modes, but overall if you're going to be investing heavily into her, then in my opinion Amity Blooms Plus or Pelagian Torch are going to be much superior weapons, but still it's really cool that she comes with a preferred weapon, which is quite decent. Overall, Orochi is not really going to be that meta-influential mage or anything like that, but still she's a pretty nice option to have in the free-to-play pool as a green infantry mage, and I'm personally going to be investing into Orochi as my plus and merge project. I'm already at +6, so I'm definitely going to be heavily investing into her as she's one of my favorite Fates characters. So let us begin with her builds. On a budget, you can definitely go with Defense Tactic from Mustafa and have Speed Tactic Sacred Seal, and something like this can help you in Arena Assault, just helping you buff up your allies, and she can still provide you with good damage output with Tiger Spirit and also give you that Panic Smoke. And if you want to invest a bit more into her, then you can run something like Attack Respond, which can be activated in both phases, and especially in the enemy phase, unlike Mirror Strike, And Quick Riposte can help her because she's really slow, so she's really not doubling anyone naturally, so that is going to be helping her. And Mystic Boost does keep her in the HP threshold of her weapon, while also improving her matchups against a lot of these staff units who have got Wrathful Staff. At higher investments, you can run Mirror Stance 3 from the Divine Code section on Orochi, and she can function really well with that because she's a rather slow unit, so preventing the special charges of the opponents during the enemy phase is pretty good. She's not going to be able to get Mirror Stance's extra stats in the player phase, but still she can pack a punch herself with a plus attack IV, which is a super boon. So that could be done, and if you want to invest even more into her, then you can definitely go with lull attack resistance, which is going to be helping her against the foes who do have buffed up stats during the combat before she panic smokes, and even after the panic smoke. Obviously the debuffs from lull attack resistance are going to be stacking up with the debuffs of panic smoke. Attack Rest Solo is a pretty nice skill that can work in both phases unlike Mirror Stance, but of course she doesn't really get that guard effect. You can also go with MAT Blooms Plus or Pelagian Torch. Like I said before, these are going to be the better weapons overall for higher investments, and I'm personally going to be going with the MAT Blooms build myself as I build her up to plus 10. So despite her not having the highest defense, she can still function with Close Foil in my opinion, because she can get the attack debuffs with MAT Blooms and also lull attack resistance, and gets the extra defense from Close Foil. So she pretty much ends up having over 45 defense, which is actually not that bad, while still having really good resistance. So the attack debuff of MAT Blooms is a lot helpful than just the flat extra resistance from Tiger Spirit, and you can definitely go with this kind of enemy phase build. With a Pelagian Torch build, it is going to be a lot harder to get this because it is present on a 5-star lock seasonal, and you will have to run some kind of menace skill or smoke skill to synergize well with this. A menace skill is really nice, but it will not be able to target multiple enemies like a smoke skill, so she definitely needs some kind of team support with the debuffs, with like a Temari debuff or like Sabotage Attack or something similar. You can also run her in Arena. She's not as good as someone like Bowie, I guess, because she doesn't have that Raven Tome, but still she's pretty good in Arena with G-Dual Infantry 4 as a free-to-play unit, because she does provide you with good damage output, her attack stat is pretty high, and she also has the Panic Smoke built into it, and everyone and their mom runs some kind of rally skill in Arena, so the Panic Smoke can actually be pretty helpful, and you can go with lull attack resistance and quick riposte to function in the enemy phase, while still hitting pretty hard in the player phase with her high attack stat. You can again go with MAT Blooms Plus because that is going to be giving you better bulk, and it is going to be improving your matchups against someone like Legendary Chrom, who does hit really hard on the physical side, so the attack debuff from MAT Blooms is much appreciated, not to mention you also get the self-healing, which is really nice. You can also use her with a Pelagian Torch build by running Attack Res Menace and having some other allies with debuffing skills like a Chill skill or even running Ruse skills, and that can provide you with some really good utility. But keep in mind that with the Pelagian Torch build, her playstyle is a bit opposite than MAT Blooms because she needs to be solo to trigger the Pelagian Torch, and with MAT Blooms she needs to be near her allies. Being a green unit in AETHER offense is not the best thing right now because we have a lot of threats like Legendary Seeger, Dual Lift, Legendary Lina running around, and they are extremely strong. But still, if you want to use her, you can probably use her as a counter pick unit with a Wolf Tome for the effective damage. The thing is that Orochi has got really good high damage output, so she can one-shot a lot of the cavalry threats that are going to be present in the Dark Season along with Note. You can get Mirror Stance 3 and Null Counter Disrupt from the Divine Code section, so it's actually not that expensive to make, and you can still use her as a counter pick unit against many of the teams that have a lot of magical threats like healers and stuff like that, but still she'll need to watch out for the physical threats like Legendary Leaf at times, or Wrath or Python, who can hit on the physical side. She has incredible amounts of resistance, so she's really not going to be taking much, and Mystic Boost itself does help her with the matchups against healers because it will disable the Wrathful Staff and give her the self-sufficiency. She can also be used with a near save armor unit, for example, as she can run Null Counter Disrupt to get rid of a lot of the magical and ranged threats, and she can also make use of Attack Res Unity because if she's going to be near within 4 spaces of Note, because Notes are going to be running Attack Speed Menace most of the time, so the Unity skill is actually pretty amazing for that. And her weapon, Slotty skill, and Slotsy skill are going to be having pretty good synergy with a near save armor unit who's going to be within 2 spaces of her to deal with Legendary Seagirds, Note, and other physical threats. Orochi is also a pretty nice unit in Aether 8's defense and can be really helpful with the Panic Smoke and the Tiger Spirit. So this is mostly going to be useful in the dark season, I feel like, because people are going to be using Peony in the light season and she can just panic those kinds of visible buffs. And in the anima season, she kind of loses value of the Panic Smoke because Ashera is going to be there with the Null Panic. So that's why I kind of prefer her in the dark season. And Panic Smoke is really good because you could stack it up with Fatal Smoke as another status effect. And the extra defense that she gets from Note is really helpful in surviving physical threats like Brave Hector and also Fallen Needle Guard, especially when you stack up defense on her with Sturdy Impact and Steady Blow. Steady Blow is there to make sure that she can double attack with Lancebreaker on a lot of the Brave Hectors who are going to be getting buffed up by Peony. So that's why Steady Blow and the extra speed from Triandra does help her with that in winning speed check and getting through the Maltet and just doubling Brave Hector. So she can be pretty nice in Aether 8's defense. Of course, nothing really too game breaking, but still quite fun and unique. Benny is actually an instant demote unit present on this banner. He's not exactly a 4-star focus like Orochi, he's just present in the 3-star 4-star pool, so it is going to be taking a while for you to plus and merge him compared to Orochi, who is a focus unit. So Benny is a Gen 5 Lance Armor unit with 184 BST, and that is pretty amazing for free-to-play players if they want to score high in Arena. But still, using armor units in Arena in the modern times is like having Champagne without Sham. So still, like, he can be helpful in scoring if that's something you're looking for. And Benny's actually not that bad as a 3-star 4-star armor unit because he's quite optimized with his bulk. Of course, someone like Brave Hector is going to be outperforming him, and that's given, but still Benny is quite decent for that kind of demote unit with his bulk and his attack stat. So he ends up having pretty respectable resistance, and he completely outclasses someone like Valbar at max investment. Valbar just has like 2 HP and 1 extra attack, which is not significant. And he also compares pretty well to the Gen 1 armor units who do have preferred weapons. Gwendolyn does have a better weapon than Effie, of course, giving that -1 special cooldown and also giving that special acceleration, but still Benny can have a lot of good lances like Steadfast Lance or Courtly Lance to get some really nice unique effects. Benny does have Steadfast Lance, which is pretty much a non-seasonal version of Guild Fork Plus, which we could obtain before in the Divine Code section. So this weapon is pretty nice because attack and defense are 2 of his main stats most of the time, but still he does have some other lances which he can utilize, like Courtly Candle is a really good mention for him because it provides him with that damage reduction and he's almost always going to be getting doubled. So it provides him with really nice tanking utility with that damage reduction on top of his already pretty good mixed bulk. So that is a lance which you should consider, and in many cases it is actually going to be better than Steadfast Lance. Now let's go over Benny's builds. So on a budget you can definitely go with Bonfire and Attack Smoke, and there's really not too much you can do on a super budget. But if you want to invest slightly more into him, then you can run something like Vengeful Fighter with Ignis, and that is going to be improving his matchups a lot because he can actually double attack, and Ignis is going to be doing so much damage with this high defense. And now let's move on to the higher investment builds if you're trying to plus and merge him. So Didu coming up in the Hero Fest banner is going to be a really nice pickup for you if you're trying to build up a Benny, because he makes fantastic use of near save skill and also sturdy stance that Didu has got. And those two things are really good because all you have to do after that is run Vengeful Fighter from the Divine Code section and he's done. And he can be a really strong unit with Ignis, and he can also get the self-healing with Mystic Boost. So Steadfast Lance is going to be protecting him against those debuffs. But I would argue that in many cases, Courtly Candle is going to be a bit better because it can give you the damage reduction, and that can help him and pretty much be like a bootleg Gustav in a sense because of that damage reduction, and can help him in some matchups. So that's also an option with a form skill, which you can always utilize with a near save skill. So if you're running Courtly Candle, Attack Defense Unity is actually a pretty nice option that you can run with Special Fighter and also Ignis, so that he can trigger his special faster, make use of the debuffs productively by increasing his attack and defense, and also getting the damage reduction from Courtly Candle. You can also run Vengeful Fighter with this, but Special Fighter is really much better because it provides you with the guard effect and also the special acceleration. And the guard effect is really nice for someone like Benny who's extremely slow. So for him to not get blasted by the specials, guard effect is something that you should definitely try to have on a max investment Benny. I would personally prefer to use Benny with his strengths using a near save skill, but still you can utilize him with distant counter and a far save skill because he does have pretty good mixed bulk overall, and Quarterly Candle can be utilized for getting that damage reduction against many of the fast mages. So again, like I said, having that guard effect is extremely important for a slow unit like him, so Crafty Fighter is going to be helpful here. Unfortunately, with this build, he's getting no special acceleration, so you pretty much have to run Bonfire, but this can be an option that he can run with a distant counter Farsight Benny. Mystic Boost is going to be helping him with the healer matchups because he will be disabling the Wrathful Staff and also getting that self-sufficiency. Benny can also be used in Arena because he can score 185 BST, and that is really good score-wise for free-to-play players. But like I said before, using armor units in the modern times isn't the best thing, but still at least Benny can be useful with his near save skill and definitely be pretty stocky with his mixed bulk. So the first build is an option with Slaying Spear, as it could help you with Fallen Edelgard matchups if you find her really annoying. Benny can still double through Fallen Edelgard with Vengeful Fighter because he'll be winning the speed check and still can double. And he does have high bulk to still take on Fallen Edelgard. You can also use Quarterly Candle and Close Defense in Arena. That's a lot more expensive, but Close Defense does help you quite a lot because people are going to be running rally skills, so you can just ignore those visible buffs of the enemies, which is really good. And Quarterly Candle does give you that damage reduction, which is going to be helpful against so many fast units and also a lot of the units who have got Bold Fighter and the auto follow-ups. So this build does have that and also gives you Special Fighter because again, having that guard is extremely important for a slow unit like him, and it also provides him with the special acceleration, so he can actually retaliate back with Ruptured Sky, which does give him decent one-shot potential against some of the frail units, but most of the time he will need like 2 Ruptured Skies to really kill enemies, which is possible with this build because he will always get doubled most of the time. You can also use him with Distant Counter, but he'll have to face a lot of really annoying matchups like Ledgering Crom, Ledgering Byleth, and things of those nature. Benny can also be used in Aether offense as a near save unit. Of course, he's no Brave Hector, but he's actually a pretty good near save unit present in the 3-star 4-star pool because of his bulk. And unlike many of the 3-star 4-star and free-to-play near save armor units, he's actually usable in the Astra season as well because he doesn't get evaporated against Ceros because of his resistance. So that is a plus point, I guess, compared to Arden and other free-to-play near save armor units. So you need to go with a similar build with Near Save, Sturdy Stance 3 from the Dew, and running Vengeful Fighter and Ignis. Ignis is going to be the way he can get kills because his attack stat isn't the highest, and Steadfast Lance is really amazing in Aether offense because debuffs are going to be really common. So this is pretty much the best near save build that you can run on Benny for Aether offense usage. You will still have to watch out for someone like Summer Shida and Bright Katria, especially Bright Katria because I can see her getting common after we have Safety Fence. And speaking of Safety Fence, because that is going to be a thing, if you want to change up your defense and if you're also investing into Benny, then he can be used in Aether defense as a near save armor unit, and that can really annoy units like Regan or other hit and run units. I can see Regan used as a hit and run unit against these kinds of teams who don't have a lot of threat range, so a near save Benny is going to be repelling any kind of Regan or any kind of melee threat really with that near save. I feel like Quarterly Candle and the combo with Attack Defense Unity is a lot better for Aether defense usage, and Special Fighter is really good because it gives him guard, and even if he attacks someone in the player phase of his, he can still at least get the special charges, which is pretty nice. So I hope you all enjoyed my banner review. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they are investing into any of these units present in this video, and I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support. If you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Valbar after seeing Benny. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.